But I hear every day some Quebecers who, by themselves and not because somebody tells them to say it, come to me and say, we would like to go into election.
Yesterday's by-elections show really clearly a couple things. First of all, they show that people are done with the Liberals. They're done with Justin Trudeau. They're done with the Liberals. They are finished.
Here to unpack the fallout from those by-elections is the front bench. With me this evening, former New Brunswick Liberal Premier Brian Gallant. He's now the CEO of Space Canada. Former Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt. She's the Vice Chair and Managing Director of Global Investment Banking at CIBC. CTV News political analyst and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair is with us, as is Marika Walsh. She's here in studio. She's a senior political reporter with the Globe and Mail. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Marika, you were on the Hill all day asking questions of all Liberals, ministers, and backbenchers. What's your impression about how they are internalizing last night's loss?
Well, I think there's the public image that they're trying to put forward, and then there's what's happening behind the scenes privately. Publicly, the Liberals are trying to put on a keep calm and fight on approach, but privately, more and more Liberals are telling me that the messaging comes across as delusional, that there is a lack of looking in the mirror and actually seeing what's in front of them, and that they think that the result in Montreal in particular shows that they would be facing a wipeout if they actually were to go to the polls anytime soon. And I think some people seem to be frustrated that they are playing down the result, calling it in the interview that you just did, media spin, that it's a stronghold and not just a straight fact, that worries them, that they actually don't see the issues at play.
Yeah, why do you think that is the strategy, Tom, being employed? I mean, it's very clear throughout the course of the day that ministers in particular were tasked with saying this is not a big deal in any way.
Well, to Marika's point about trying to spin that it's not a Liberal stronghold, all you have to do is go online and look at the results of the last election, where Trudeau won a minority government, and frankly, his minister, David Lametti, won in a romp. They got exactly twice as many votes as the bloc that defeated them yesterday. So I do believe that there is a certain amount of delusional behavior on the part of the Liberals right now. Singh is painting himself further and further into a corner. We know that we're going to have a vote next week. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. I know that riding well. I've worked there. I know tons of people there. And we've known all along that the Liberals were going to be in trouble, but they didn't seem to acknowledge it. And they keep saying, oh, it was a very close thing. Yeah, but you lost. Close only counts in horseshoes. You lost a key Liberal riding in Montreal. And after the loss in St. Paul's and Toronto last June, you can't win your main seats in Montreal and Toronto. What is left for the Liberals across Canada? I think the answer is not very much.
Yeah, I think the question as I posed it to the minister, Brian, was like, if you can't win there, where can you win, really? But the answer is continually throughout the day, very much, this is just a by-election. It's a dry run is actually how it was characterized. And I do take the point that by-elections, particularly this far into an incumbent government, are, voters feel like they can send a message. But they also sent a pretty loud and clear one here and in Toronto. You compound the impact of that. It feels like, why do they think that people are buying what they're selling in the way they're spinning this?
Yeah, look, a few things. By-election is a by-election. We have to put in context that people can send a message, and that's a very real thing, and we have to be, I think, fair in the analysis. And in fact, I was in Toronto just last week, and I was speaking with some friends, and this was a self-proclaimed sort of progressive, voted Liberal most of their lives, they told me, and they said in the by-election, which they voted in Toronto a few months ago, they said, yeah, I took that opportunity to send a message. And they said they weren't decided if the election were held anytime soon, how they would vote, but they weren't sure that they would necessarily vote against the Liberals, but they were very sure during the by-election that they wanted to send a message. Now, how many people are like that? I don't know. To me, the message that they should have gotten with Toronto, and I'm sure it's been reinforced now, the polls are real. The polls, as they stand today, are very real. There's obviously no disputing that. People are upset. They're in a bit of they're not a bit. They're in a rut, and they're not getting out of it so far. So they have to believe that. And the points of sort of delusion, if that is the case, they better wake up, and they better wake up very quickly. I'm not sure it's really delusional. I think it's more of a poor choice of how to deal with it from a comms point of view. The one thing that worries me for them would be the fact that they seem to be saying, well, the economy's starting to pick up, and And obviously that's an important message. But I'm getting the signal that it feels like they want something to change with the economy, something to change with something that they don't control to improve their chances. I would argue that they have to change something that they do control, and they have to make some big changes to send signals to Canadians and ultimately, in the next little while, to caucus members and even to cabinet members.
There remains, though, Lisa, no indication that what Brian just spelled out is ever going to happen. Like, to be blunt, the Prime Minister and everyone around him today insisted he is not going anywhere. And when it comes to putting, like, big different policies in the window, there is no indication that they even think that should happen.
Do you think it's possible that they're telling themselves internally that they didn't do as bad as they think they did in Montreal last night? Like, do they actually, have they suspended disbelief on this and think that for a second that this is just an anomaly and not to worry about it, and it was a close race anyway, and they only came second? Because if they're telling themselves those kind of lies, they are just setting the table for Pierre Poilievre to win a great majority in the coming months. Clearly, a message is being sent that there is some kind of change that's wanted. And, you know, a big lesson, I think, should be heard by Mr. Singh as well, because they didn't choose him. They chose the Bloc Québécois. And his numbers in Winnipeg weren't as great as he thought they could be. And the Conservatives, like Nick Nanos just said, are actually doing really well. And the polls are right. Brian has said it. The polls are right, and they should take a look at it. So what can they do? Well, they can hope the economy does better. Okay, we all hope that, quite frankly, but it's going to take a long time. It's like moving an aircraft carrier. The other thing they can do, though, is change it up. What are they going to change? Are they going to change the Prime Minister? Or maybe they're going to talk about changing Prime Ministerial staff. It's not going to be about changing cabinet, because he did that last year. And that's why we're in these two by-elections now, because he made changes last year and the chickens have come home to roost.
I just want to pick up on Lisa's point around the NDP, Marika. What's your read on where the conversation sits there? My impression is that everything Lisa said is true about Montreal, but that because they were able to hold in Winnipeg, despite the increased support for the Conservatives, they weren't able to win. The NDP held. I feel like Mr. Singh is breathing a sigh of relief right now.
They are absolutely breathing a sigh of relief. I think that it was a bit of a communications misplay on their part. They set expectations, especially early in the summer, very high on LaSalle, making reporters think, making people think that was one they could win. They did not see the block coming. And frankly, it appeared that they did not see the upswing from the Conservatives in Winnipeg coming, because they only closer and closer to Election Day acknowledged how tight it is. And I think actually the Conservatives thought they might have had a chance in Winnipeg. I don't think they thought it was as long a shot as they were portraying to the public. So I think the Conservatives are a bit disappointed this morning that they didn't score that upset over Mr. Singh. Interestingly, when I talked to Liberals, they believe that the result actually would embolden all three political opposition parties to now vote against the government, because Jagmeet Singh sees his chance in English Canada, the Bloc see their chance, and all of them want to run against Justin Trudeau, not risk the Liberals switching out leaders. So some Liberals actually think all of this could spell an earlier election.
Well, you're previewing our next discussion where we're going to talk about the fact that there's going to be a vote on this next week. Just really quickly, Tom, before we head to break and talk about all that, I want to get your read on Jagmeet Singh's leadership, because last week when we were together, we were talking about if he lost that seat, how he would be, on the receiving end as many questions as Justin Trudeau about whether he should remain as leader. Does this put a pause on those questions for a while, do you think, or at least deflate their significance for a bit?
For sure, and he's getting a strong new member of caucus for however long that's going to be. But no, he won, and a win is a win, and you put that in the bank. But the Conservatives, as Marika just correctly pointed out, have got a real head of steam going. And even though they weren't able to win in Elmwood-Transcona, boy, did they get a lot of votes. I know that. And as Brian was saying, it's a reflection of all the polling that we've been getting. So obviously that will add to the nervousness both in the NDP and the Liberal camps, because the Conservatives are just that strong right now.